In Kent, in England, good afternoon and welcome to the Grand Prix of Europe. According to the original Grand Prix calendar, we should be in North America now. We should be either in Las Vegas or New York, because that's where the two rounds taking place at this end of the season should have been. But both of them have been cancelled. There's only the South African Grand Prix left to go after this one, and the gap in the calendar has been filled by a second Grand Prix in England. So the lucky British racegoers, having had their own British Grand Prix at Silverstone in July, have now come in an enormous number to Brands Hatch on this beautifully sunny September day to see the Grand Prix of Europe, a second Grand Prix in Britain. And it's very, very important for the World Championship, because any one of three drivers have a strong chance of winning the championship still, and one man could do it today. We'll look at the championship points in just a moment, but let's now look down the grid with a Lotus on pole position. Elio De Angelis, the Italian, Riccardo Patrese alongside him in the Brabham, Nigel Mansell in another Lotus, a splendid third fastest, Nelson Pique, the winner at Monza, alongside him. So it's Lotus, Brabham, the front two rows. Then the two Ferraris, then the two Renaults. John Watson is on the fifth row with his McLaren, Derek Warrick is on the sixth row with his Tolman, and Niki Lauda on the seventh row with his McLarens. The Alfa Romeos well down on the seventh and eighth rows. Unlucky practice for Jacques Lafitte, who's failed to qualify the number 2 Williams for the second Grand Prix running, but there are two Williamses in the race, because Jonathan Palmer's having his debut outing in the third Williams. There the championship points, and you'll see that Prost has a 2-point lead over Arnoux, and Pique is a further 3 points down. Patrick Tambay still has just an outside chance of winning, but if Prost can win this race today, and neither Arnoux nor Pique can score, then Alain Prost could end today the new world champion. If that doesn't happen, it's going to go all the way to South Africa. And there is Derek Ongaro, the man who is going to unleash 26 600 horsepower cars. Derek Ongaro, the man who goes to every Grand Prix and has the crucial job of starting the race as the 26 cars now return from their final warm-up lap. All coming now into position. They've warmed up their tyres. They're now going to look at the lighting box, which will show them a red light, then a green. Derek Ongaro will switch on the current, which will give him the red light, and then he's going to punch that button, which will give him the green, and the race will be on. He's waiting to see they're all in position. As he looks down, on goes the current for the red light. There is the green, and the Grand Prix of Europe is away. Nigel Mansell darting right across the road in number 12, but it's the Brabhams that have got away well, and Riccardo Patrese has rocketed into the lead from the two Lotuses, and from Nelson Piquet's Brabham. Eddie Cheever's made a good start as well, but up into Druids, the tight hairpin. Locking a brake was Nelson Piquet, nudging the back of Nigel Mansell's car was Nelson Piquet. As they come down the hill, Piquet is attacking Mansell for that third place. Patrese it is who's leading. De Angelis second, Mansell third. Into fourth place, Nelson Piquet alongside Mansell as they go into Surtees, but away over the brow and down the fast long back section. 165, 170 miles an hour down this hill and up the other side and into Hawthorne's Bend. Still Mansell is third, still Piquet is fourth. It's Brabham, Lotus, Lotus, Brabham. Then we've got Eddie Cheever, 3 yellow cars altogether. Eddie Cheever's Renault, then the ATS of Winkelhock, then the World Championship leader Alain Prost, who's down in 7th place at the moment. None of the Ferraris in the first 7 places. And the battle on well and truly between the Brabhams and the Lotuses at the front. This is the first of 76 laps. Twisting, bumpy, 2.6 mile circuit, out of clearways and over the start-finish line. Number 12 is Mansell in third place, but it's number 6, Brabham, leading. He's wearing number 5 because he made a last-minute change into his teammate Piquet's spare car, but it is Patrese in the lead from De Angelis. Mansell still there third, still fourth the white car is Pique, still fifth Cheever, still sixth Winkelhock, then Patrese, and there are the two Ferraris with Arnoux 8th, Tambay 9th, and Derek Warrick is there in the Tolman in 10th place as they go through Surtees for the second time. And Prost already attacking Winkelhock. and René Arnoux close. And look at Mansell under pressure now from Pique. Pique almost alongside Mansell. Is Pique going to do it as they go down and up into Hawthorns? Pique slots through into third place. It's Brabham Lotus, and Cheever now attacks Nigel Mansell. So while Elio De Angelis attacks Patrese for the lead, Mansell defending and losing a place to Cheever. No, he's not, he's staying there. No, Cheever forces his way through. Cheever now fourth. Mansell now down to fifth place. Sixth is still Winkelhock, or has Prost come through? Because Prost is climbing as well. So the championship contenders are moving their way to the front. This is now lap 3 of the 76, and still Riccardo Patrese leads. Look at that battle in the midfield. Cheever, Mansell, Prost. Then that was Arnoux going past Winkelhock. A tremendous 3, 6, 7, 8 car battle out of Paddock Bend and up the hill into Druids. Mansell defending his place from Prost, from Arnoux, from Winkelhock and from Tombe. Brands Hatch, as you can see, constantly up and down corners of every conceivable type of camber and bump. And Nigel Mansell, a man who knows this circuit very, very well indeed. The Pirelli shod Lotus was very fast in practice, but Mansell now has Alain Prost tucked in behind as they come up to Hawthorns. Prost is through just where his teammate did it, and rather more easily than Cheever was able to do. And now René Arnoux attacks and passes Mansell. Mansell has gone all the way from third right down to, what is that, 7th place now. Prost, Arnoux, Mansell, Winkelhock, Tombe. Then it was Derek Warrick, and number 22 was the Alfa Romeo moving up. Both of the Alphas started low down on the grid, among the slower of the turbocharged cars. But still, as they start lap 4, and we look again at the hapless Mansell number 12, it's Lotus number 11 which is in second place. There's that train in the midfield, but still out in front, I can tell you, is Riccardo Patrese. You just saw him on the left of the picture there, with Elio De Angelis still pursuing. And now Arnoux is, of course, past Mansell. And the next one behind Mansell is Winkelhock, the slightly brighter yellow car, slightly brighter yellow than the Renaults, which have gone past the Lotus. Tombe and Derek Warrick, the Hampshire driver, in the Tolman, who's finished in the points on a couple of occasions recently in the now much more reliable Tolman. And remember, this is the circuit, Brands Hatch, where Derek Warrick did a wonderful job in the Tolman last July 1982 in the Tolman. There he is behind Tombe. And on that occasion, Warrick actually took second place from Didier Pironi's Ferrari before his car let him down. And in this wonderful close battle, with Mansell now holding off the attentions of Winkelhock, in there are the two McLarens of Watson and Lauda, the two tag turbo McLarens, also well down. And now we transfer our attention to the leader. There he is, Patrese, from De Angelis. Pique still third, Cheever and Prost in the Renaults 4th and 5th. René Arnoux' Ferrari is 6th. On down the hill and up over the brow, out of Surtees, down the long straight of Pilgrim's Drop, 165, 170, 175 miles an hour. Patrese and De Angelis, the battle for the lead. And this is significant that while so much focus is being shown on the World Championship, neither of the first two in this race now are in the championship hunt. So what is Patrese going to do if he can maintain this lead? What he will try to do if he's driving to team orders, I would guess, is try to lead the race by as little as possible, try to retain his lead, but try to slow the pace of the race down so that Nelson Piquet can move through to the front and consolidate his championship points position. This is now lap 8. We watch the two Renaults with Cheever leading his teammate Prost, and it's Prost who needs the championship points. Is Cheever going to let Prost by? Down into Paddock Bend, indeed he does. Number 15 passes number 16. Alain Prost goes past Eddie Cheever. So now we've got two of the championship protagonists in 3rd and 4th places. out of Druids, down the hill into Graham Hill Bend. There is Pique, there are the two Renaults. Now Prost will want to close on Nelson Pique because the championship points are very much in his mind as well. Remember, Alain Prost leads the championship. The man in front of him is 5 points behind him only, and not very far behind Prost is the man who is only 2 points behind him, René Arnoux in the Ferrari. There's Nigel Mansell glancing at his mirrors, but still holding off the BMW powered ATS of Winkelhock. Tombe is 27, the Ferrari. Behind Tombe is De Cesaris. There he is, number 22, De Cesaris in the Alfa. Derek Warrick in the Tolman pursuing them over these constant up and down switchback turns of Brands Hatch, one of the most demanding tracks in the Formula One calendar. Out of Stirling's Bend onto Clearways, that's Winkelhock. Along the top straight and now to the steeply downhill Paddock Bend after the start-finish line. A falling away apex, very steeply downhill, as you can see from this wonderful shot as they come now up the hill, up into Druids, with Winkelhock still chasing Mansell. 27 is Tombe, then De Cesaris and Derek Warrick closing up on Patrick Tombe in the second Ferrari, and still there you see the order after 9 laps. We're on lap 10. It's Patrese, De Angelis and Pique and Prost. And now up behind Derek Warrick, it's car number 7. That's John Watson. John Watson, who has come strongly up from his 10th starting position, but in fact Derek Warrick, who's just in front of John Watson, actually started behind him. So although Watson is doing a good job of coming through from behind, Warrick is ahead of him, having started behind. That's 22 De Cesaris. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. A great 6-car battle queuing up behind Nigel Mansell. And Mansell, I wonder, may have perhaps cooked his tyres in some way in the frantic early laps, because De Angelis is still very close to the leader in Lotus number 11, but Nigel Mansell in Lotus number 12 doesn't seem quite to have the speed under race conditions. And we've got drama at Surtees. The two leaders have touched, they're off. You can't see it on the screen, but we're getting reports at Surtees. There is in fact the new leader, because Patrese and De Angelis have touched and have gone off. They've both restarted. In fact, there you see Patrese back in second place with Alain Prost absolutely breathing down his neck. Nelson Pique is now the leader, and because Patrese and De Angelis touched when De Angelis tried to take the lead, Patrese has restarted in second place. That is the battle for second. You see on the screen now with Alain Prost third and all over the back of Patrese, but Nelson Pique has got clean away. De Angelis has also restarted. He's come out just in front of his teammate Nigel Mansell in 6th place. So there is Patrese holding a blocking line on the Renault. It's Brabham's first and second, and it's a very determined Alain Prost in 3rd place, attacking round the outside of Druids on Riccardo Patrese. Down the hill, this is the battle for 2nd place, and the erstwhile leader, having been punted out of the lead on this corner now, shuts the door across Alain Prost as he takes his line for Surtees. But that's such bad luck for Riccardo Patrese. De Angelis challenged him, Patrese shut the door, the two cars touched, and although Patrese got going very, very quickly indeed, he lost the lead to Pique, and he's there in 2nd place, and he is now in the position that we were surmising earlier, where he's got the championship contender in the Brabham team, Nelson Pique, in front, and now Patrase's role has become a very defensive one. He's got to try and keep Alain Prost back to allow Nelson Pique to get clean away and score the maximum points here. Pique over the start-finish line. And still, Patrese leads Prost. That's the second place battle. And you can get an idea of the gap if we're going to see them coming into the picture. There they are at Paddock. They're in Paddock Bend as the leader comes out of Druids. So that is an indication of the lead that Nelson Pique, very lucky today, so far anyway, has been able to take. And still Alain Prost attacks, looking at the inside at Surtees. This is lap 13 now. Over the brow out of Surtees, and we've got a fastest lap for Pique, 1:15.4, an average speed just a whisker short of 125 miles an hour. And you can see what sort of achievement that is if you count the number of twists and turns and corners on this Brands Hatch circuit. Riccardo Patrese second, still Prost third. Eddie Cheever in the other Renault is still fourth. René Arnoux is fifth. Elio De Angelis was sixth, but I think De Angelis is in trouble. Not only did he have that spin which dropped him to sixth, but I think De Angelis is in trouble as lap 14 now for the leader. An empty top straight before we wait for this battle, and still Prost can't find a way past the second Brabham. Prost closes up under braking for Paddock, down the hill from Paddock in fourth gear, accelerating up the hill, and then they stamp hard on the brakes all the way down into second. They don't take third, straight from fourth into second. And indeed there is De Angelis coming into the pits. He'd slowed the steam, the smoke, De Angelis getting out of the car, and De Angelis clearly, yes, his race run. And this was a Grand Prix that the Italian so wanted to win. He started from pole position, he dominated practice, but one of the Lotus is out, and Nigel Mansell now in sixth place in the one remaining Lotus, number 12. Little puffs of smoke there from Pique, the leader, and again this empty road before we get the battle for second place. There it is, and it's still Patrese. And Patrase's Brabham also, little puffs of smoke as well, but these turbo Brabhams do tend to have fairly smoky exhaust. There you saw a glimpse of Cheever holding fourth place by the narrowest of margins from a very determined René Arnoux. And isn't it fascinating how the championship leaders are coming through? Oh, that's the oil from De Angelis' car in the pits, and Prost is through. Prost has taken second place in Paddock Bend, a classic manoeuvre from Alain Prost, who goes through into second place. Patrese is demoted to third. Just as we were saying, the championship leaders are coming through. We've now got the man third in the championship leading, we've got the championship leader in second place, and we've got the man who's second in the championship, René Arnoux, in fifth place, but challenging Eddie Cheever for fourth. And now, is Prost going to get away? I think he is, because already there's a couple of car lengths between Renault number 15, the Frenchman Alain Prost, and the Italian Riccardo Patrese in the Brabham. The Brazilian in the Brabham, Nelson Pique, still the leader, and this is lap 15 of the 76. So a very, very long way still to go on this punishing Brands Hatch circuit. The weather's pretty warm as well, so even though the turbocharged cars are more reliable this season, we could well be seeing a race of attrition. Over the start-finish line goes the second man. There is the leader in Druids. Now, can we see Alain Prost with the World Championship title so near and yet so far? Are we going to see Prost close the gap on Nelson Pique? Certainly Pique will be running at maximum race boost. He'll be driving absolutely as hard as he can. And Prost equally will be doing everything he can to close. We're looking now at Patrese. That is Patrese, and that is Cheever, and that was Arnoux. So now a great battle for third, because Patrese is being caught. Riccardo Patrese in third place, being caught by Cheever's Renault and René Arnoux in the Ferrari. René Arnoux, the red Ferrari, number 28, the white crash helmet. René Arnoux currently second in the championship, just 2 points behind Alain Prost. and the man that's in front of him, Eddie Cheever, is also a Renault driver. And once again, surely team tactics are going to come into play here, because Eddie Cheever knows that if he's a good Renault team driver, which he certainly will want to be seen to be, he's going to want to do everything he can to keep Alain Prost's closest championship rival behind him and away from Prost. Over the start-finish line, this is the start of lap 19 now. Goes the battle for third place, as out in front of Patrese, Prost does everything he can to close on Pique. So, as we now start the 20th lap, the order: first Nelson Piquet Brabham, second Alain Prost Renault, third Riccardo Patrese Brabham, fourth Eddie Cheever Renault, fifth René Arnoux Ferrari, sixth Nigel Mansell in the Lotus. Now, Arnoux is the man who's going to have to get a move on, because his championship position is crucial for him. He can't win the championship today, but if he can get close enough to Prost, he can ensure that Prost can't take the title today. And René Arnoux is going to want to find a way past Eddie Cheever. That's Patrese, and Patrese has Cheever and Arnoux to contend with. There's the order after 18 laps. This is now the start of lap 20. And we wait for the third place battle, which should be coming into sight any moment. There indeed it is, with Arnoux pressing now. Arnoux starting to push Cheever as they go down the hill into Paddock Bend. Patrese, Cheever and Arnoux up into Druids. Arnoux with his head tucked down in the cockpit, that very characteristic forward seating position of the little Frenchman, contrasting with Eddie Cheever, the tallest man in Grand Prix racing, who has to really fold himself into that Renault to get tucked down inside. And where's Arnoux? Arnoux has spun! Arnoux has spun! So, Arnoux opening his visor and scraping the bottom of the Ferrari on the curb. Is he going to be able to get away? René Arnoux has spun the Ferrari to a complete halt out in the country, and that means that his pressure on Cheever is ending. We're going to see it. It was actually coming out of Surtees backwards over the curbs that could well have damaged the underneath of the car, but Arnoux has now begun, and he's slid right down the field. René Arnoux has slid right down the field. We'll tell from the lap chart in just a minute where he is, but he's come out behind Danny Sullivan in number 4. Meanwhile, that's Niki Lauda in the pits. Niki Lauda in the pits with some very terminal looking smoke coming from the tag turbo engine in the back of the McLaren. Patrick Tambay, now the front-running Ferrari, and he has got still Andrea de Cesaris tucked in behind him. So number 27 Tambay, number 22 de Cesaris. Tambay taking over the battle for Ferrari points. This is now lap 28, and I can tell you from the lap chart that René Arnoux rejoined in 19th place. That's how long it took him to get going. He's already carved his way up. But of course, we've got the routine pit stops to come before very long. It's a 76-lap race, so we're not all that far now on lap 28 from half distance, and quite soon we're going to have the pit activity. This is now lap 29, and we read off the lap chart. Still Nelson Piquet the leader, still Alain Prost in second place, still Riccardo Patrese is there in third place, Cheever is fourth, Nigel Mansell promoted to fifth by Arnoux's spin, and the battle we were just seeing, Patrick Tambay and Andrea de Cesaris, is at the moment the battle for the final championship position. There they go, arguing over sixth place. So still this magnificent 5-car battle tied together for third place, led by Patrese. There's Niki Lauda walking away from his car philosophically to take up a position on the pit wall to spectate. Oh, and that's problems for Danny Sullivan. Sullivan right off. The engine seems to have blown. He's still motoring, and he's well on fire. Danny Sullivan's car on fire. I think that an oil pipe must have gone, and I think that he must have oil all over his back tyres, and the car is burning merrily. The car is burning merrily, and surely he must stop. Surely Danny Sullivan must stop. He does. He's pulling off the circuit on the bottom straight. He's driving the car up to where the fire marshals can get at it. Very, very cool, calm and collected action. In fact, he's getting out quite slowly. The worst of the fire seems to have blown itself out. Danny Sullivan out of the car, but they are dousing it with fire extinguisher fluid. And what I think must have happened, that looked to me like an oil pipe, because there was a lot of oil smoke first. And that's De Cesaris challenging Tombe, but he doesn't get through. De Cesaris challenging Tombe for 6th place. This is now lap 32. Still the same order, but still this superb battle here at Brands Hatch, going all the way from 3rd place to 7th. There you see it. It's Patrese 3rd. It's Cheever 4th. It's Mansell 5th. It's Tombe 6th, and it's De Cesaris 7th. And while the real championship and race lead battle goes on in front, with about 10 seconds on our rough hand timing, still between leader Pique and second man Prost, still we have this battle all the way from 3rd back to 7th, and we see the 6th place battle there, a little puff of rubber smoke from De Cesaris there as he locked a wheel going into Druids. 3rd, 4th, 5th, Patrese, Cheever and Mansell, 6th Tombe, and 7th the Alfa Romeo of De Cesaris. Down the fastest part of the circuit now, 180 miles an hour if they've got a good run up into Stirling's Bend, into Hawthorne's Bend I should say, then on to Westfields, 140 miles an hour in 4th. Little puff of flame there from the back of Patrese's BMW, but that doesn't necessarily herald a Danny Sullivan type conflagration, because these turbocharged cars traditionally spurt jets of flame out of the exhaust when the driver takes his foot off the throttle and unburnt fuel goes through the hot turbocharger. And that's John Watson in the pits now. That is a bit early for a routine stop, I would have thought, but they are indeed refueling it and changing tyres, but it looks like a bit of a slow one, and I think Watson is not happy there. I think there's a problem there for Watson. Meanwhile, still this battle, Cheever harrying the back of the Brabham, Mansell sitting and watching, Tombe a little bit further back, with De Cesaris chasing Tombe. 10.8 seconds. Well, I said about 10 seconds, and 10.8 is the official timekeeper's gap between leader Pique and second man Alain Prost, and all the time Patrese keeping the rest of the pursuit back. Patrese 3rd, Cheever 4th, Mansell 5th. You see Mansell wipe his visor briefly there, because if you're sitting as close to a car as Mansell is to Cheever's Renault, a lot of oil as well as rubber can coat your visor. All of these drivers will be carrying tear-off visors. They have little extra plastic layers which are stuck over their visor, and when one of them gets too sticky and too oily to see through, they just tear it off and throw it out of the cockpit, throw it away, and then they've got a clean layer for a bit. Now the pit signals showing, no doubt, that stops are imminent, and that's Cheever in. Eddie Cheever is in. So Eddie Cheever from 4th place is in the pits for his routine stop, and it looks a quick one. It's 11.77 seconds to change 4 wheels and to put on 25 or 30 gallons of fuel, and that means that Nigel Mansell has closed up on Riccardo Patrese. All of these men have their pit stop still to make. Cheever has made his, but that means that Mansell it is who now has to follow in the slightly oily wake of Riccardo Patrese's Brabham. Patrese 3rd, Mansell 4th, Tombe 5th, Cheever, De Cesaris I should say, 6th. Cheever has made his stop, and Mansell is challenging perhaps harder at Patrese than was Cheever before his stop. Mansell, who committed quite a sin at Zandvoort a couple of Grand Prix ago by trying to pass Derek Warrick and failing and having an accident, and he did that the lap before he was due to come in, which didn't please the team manager of Lotus, Peter Waugh, who said that Mansell knew he was coming in next time round and he should have waited. But Mansell isn't waiting here. Mansell is really pushing hard on Patrese, and that's De Cesaris now in the pits. So that gaggle of cars running so closely from 3rd to 7th place, the difference between a good and a bad pit stop could be an awful lot on the track. It's 12.4 seconds, so less than 1 second's difference between Cheever's stop and De Cesaris' stop. All of these mechanics very, very skillful and very quick, and that is one of the Ferraris in. It's Arnoux. It's Arnoux who's come in early from his rather lowly position after that spin, and that looks like a quick stop as well. 12.7 seconds also for René Arnoux, so very little to choose between the Renault stop and the Ferrari stop and the Alfa Romeo stop. And Patrese still there in 3rd place. Mansell still 4th. And with the pit stops, we've now got Derek Warrick coming onto the leaderboard in 6th place behind Patrick Tambay. And somebody else, I think that is, who's peeling off into the pits. It is indeed Patrese. Patrese into the pits. Now, these Brabham chaps really know what they're doing. They virtually invented or reinvented the routine pit stop. And these chaps know exactly what they're doing. Provided they don't get a problem, yes, 8 seconds, most of the wheels are done. But there's still a problem somewhere. There is a problem at one back wheel. One back wheel isn't changed. It's 20 seconds. That's a real delay for Patrese. And now finally he's off, but there was a problem with that back wheel. 25 seconds, and that is at least 12 seconds more than it should have taken a problem with one rear wheel. And that means that if Nigel Mansell can make a quicker stop than Patrese did, then once all the pit stops are over and the race order has re-established itself, then Mansell should be finishing in front of Patrese. Lots of flame there from the back of Mansell's turbo. I'm sorry, from Derek Warwick's turbo, I should say. Warrick now up into 5th position, but he's got his stop to make. That's Gordon Murray without the crash helmet on. All the helmeted Brabham mechanics waiting now for the leader's pit stop. And Gordon Murray will be very concerned, the Brabham team manager, very concerned about what went wrong with the Brabham wheel change, just as I was telling you how good the Brabham mechanics usually are at these pit stops. And there is Warrick in now. That's Derek Warrick with his pit stop. We didn't get the watch on it, but he goes away with wheel spin and smoke pluming from the back tires, rocketing out of the pits. As René Arnoux, we see on his way, still well out of the championship points, but he's had his stop. And interestingly, Arnoux appears to have come out just in front of Prost. We haven't had Alain Prost stop yet. And of course, we haven't had Nelson Pique's stop yet. So the first two still, as we look at lap 41, the first two, oh, and there is Prost in. Alain Prost, the 2nd place man, is in the pits, and this is a very, very crucial stop. The Renault mechanics changing the wheels, forcing in the fuel. And it's over 12, it's over 13, it's almost 14 seconds for Prost. So Alain Prost a couple of seconds slower than his teammate Cheever, and there's the man out on his own in front now. Nelson Pique, the leader, with still his pit stop to come, and if his pit stop is as disastrous as was his teammates, Riccardo Patrese's, then that could radically change the face of this race. Certainly at this point, Pique will be driving on maximum boost. He'll be doing everything he can to extend his lead. They're waiting for Mansell's stop now. That's the Lotus team already in their flame-proof gear, ready for Nigel Mansell's pit stop. And of course, with the stops, Mansell has been promoted now to 2nd place. He's only got Nelson Pique ahead of him. the distinctive tall back wing, the four-decker wing of the Lotus of Nigel Mansell, and Mansell surely now must be on his way with Tombe close behind him. Mansell must be on his way to the pit stop. Tombe is still third, and Tombe too has not stopped. There's the Renault in fourth place, a glimpse of the Renault which is fourth of Alain Prost. He is the front runner who hasn't stopped, but let's watch this Lotus pit stop for Nigel Mansell, because Mansell is indeed coming in. Mansell in over the dust that was left, the cement dust that was being put on the puddle of oil left by De Angelis's car. Oh, and the back tyres. Oh, that's a very quick one. That's 9.6. That is very, very quick indeed. An absolutely perfect stop from the Lotus team. 9.62. They're looking at their stopwatches. They can barely believe it. A wonderful stop for Nigel Mansell. And we were guessing earlier on, you'll remember, that Mansell perhaps did his first set of tyres not a lot of good in the opening laps, because he fell back so quickly from his initial third place. That is Cheever going by, but he's not going by. Mansell is warming up his new set of tyres. Cheever has had his stop. Now is Cheever going to get through? Both of these cars have stopped now. In front of them there are cars that still have to stop, but Prost of course has gone through. Pique is still leading. Pique has to stop, but Cheever challenging Mansell. Mansell came out in the nick of time in front of Cheever, was warming his tyres up, and Mansell is going to keep that door shut. That's Tombe in now. So the Ferrari team making their change. René Arnoux has already stopped. This is Tombe. And the stopwatch clocks up exactly 12 seconds, so nothing at all wrong with that, but not the dramatically quick stop that we had for this man, Nigel Mansell. And we were just saying that if he did cook his first set of tyres, he's now got fresh ones, and he's had to warm them up jolly quickly to keep Eddie Cheever behind. Oh, and the leader's in! This is Nelson Piquet's stop, and this is the most important pit stop in the race. Let's watch the watch. Back tyres going on, fuel going in. One of the front tyres is done. And we've got a problem at the back. There's a problem with that wheel wrench. 3 mechanics now working on the back. There was a delay at the back with the wheel wrench, I think. 19.6 seconds. So that's 2 slow stops for Piquet, and Piquet has still come out ahead of Alain Prost. 19.6 seconds. That will have reduced his lead, but it hasn't removed it. So 19.6 seconds. What was that? About 7 or 8 seconds slower than Alain Prost's. Piquet unable initially to shake off the arrows of Thierry Boutsen, that is, because he is still on cool tyres. But nevertheless, now he's pulling clearly away from Boutsen, and that's Keke Rosberg. Keke Rosberg, who's had his routine stop. Keke Rosberg coasting very, very slowly indeed. Rosberg clearly in all sorts of trouble, and I would think the World Champions race is run. That's probably, and I know Rosberg hopes this is the case, the last race that he will be doing with Cosworth power, because the new Honda turbo-powered Williams is due to make its race debut in 3 weeks' time in South Africa. Tombe. That's a glimpse of number 42. That's Jonathan Palmer, the Formula 2 champion, having his first Grand Prix. And he's running quite comfortably, thank you very much, in about 16th place at the moment. Yes, a shrug and a gesture to the marshals from champion Keke Rosberg, so soon to lose that championship title to one of the 3 men who are battling it out there on the circuit still. René Arnoux, incidentally, well down. The marshals pushing on Keke Rosberg's car out of the way. And there is Cheever back in the pits. That's Cheever back in the pits. It's some sort of problem with his visor. It looks as though his visor's come adrift. He's waving anxiously and impatiently. Yes, you can see his visor is flapping. Obviously the visor has come adrift and they're going to stick it up with sticky tape. They've stuck it up very rapidly and out goes Cheever again. So 2 pit stops for Cheever, and that means that Nigel Mansell's pressure is relieved anyway. The Lotus-powered Renault, which was being challenged by the Renault-powered Renault, there is Mansell again, and now Mansell is under pressure from De Cesaris. So this is lap 46. The pit stops are completed, and let's look at the order. Lap 46, the leader, Nelson Pique. That is Patrese we're looking at now. Despite the rather curious number 5 on the side of his car, that was Patrese. But it's the other number 5 in this race that is leading. Nelson Pique, of course, in the lead. Alain Prost, there is Pique. Alain Prost in second place, and my rough hand timing makes it about 7 seconds gap. 7 to 8 seconds. In fact, no, it's 11 seconds, 11.8 seconds now. So Pique, back on the track, has put in a tremendous spurt to straighten the, or to restore the gap between himself and Alain Prost, which he lost in that tardy pit stop. So Alain Prost is second. Patrick Tambay in the Ferrari is third. In fourth place, it's Nigel Mansell. In fifth place, there he is, it's De Cesaris, and that's a very close battle for fourth and fifth places. And in sixth place, it's the Tolman of Derek Warrick. Now look at De Cesaris really charging, looking for this fourth place. De Cesaris putting every sort of pressure on Nigel Mansell as they come along the top straight, over the bumps and down into paddock. De Cesaris has a look at the inside, but Mansell holds the line, holds his fourth place. Now, over the bumps, up the hill, Mansell takes a very tight line into Druids to keep the door shut. Now, will De Cesaris try to get on the inside, coming down the hill into Graham Hill Bend? He can't do it. Along bottom straight and into Surtees. Very slippery corner. That's where Arnoux came to grief. That's where De Angelis and Patrese tangled when fighting for the lead. Over the brow, now onto the fastest part of the circuit, down Pilgrim's Drop, up the hill again into Hawthorne's Bend, fourth gear, 150 miles an hour, held fourth gear, down to Westfield Bend, that's the next right-hander, 140 miles an hour, then briefly up to 155, down that drop, that's Dingle Dell, up the other side, third gear now, then down to the left-hander, which is Stirling's Bend, still in fourth gear. Now they accelerate down, and 10.9 is the official gap. The official gap we're getting from the timekeepers, 10.9 between Pique and Prost, and that means that Prost has closed just a little tiny bit. Remember, there's a lot of traffic about. The leaders are having to work their way past back markers. There's a lot of lapping going on, and Mansell has pulled away a little bit, as we've got Mark Sura in the pits with the Arrows. The Arrows this week wearing green and white colours, denoting their sponsorship from long-time motor racing enthusiast David Mason and his art gallery. Yes, and Mansell has put on a very useful spurt. Look how Mansell has shaken off the attentions of Andrea De Cesaris, and indeed De Cesaris slipping into the clutches of the Tolman of Derek Warrick. We're now on lap 56 of the 76, so 20 laps left to run. Still beautiful, warm, sunny conditions here at Brands Hatch. There's De Cesaris, and there is Derek Warrick catching him. So the Turbo Alpha being caught by the Turbo Tolman. In Druids, Derek Warrick can see De Cesaris not very far, tantalisingly close in fact, and that's a great spur to a driver. De Cesaris slipping away from Mansell and slipping into the clutches of the other British driver, Derek Warrick. And talking of British drivers, still going is Jonathan Palmer, and what's that in the cockpit? That looks like oil smoke, some sort of smoke. that could be, I'm wondering what can be leaking oil right up in the cockpit there. In fact, an idea we've just had here in the commentary point, it could well be fire extinguisher foam. It could be the powder from the fire extinguisher. I wonder if Derek Warrick's extinguisher can have gone off in the cockpit. And if it has, that could be very, very unpleasant and uncomfortable for Warrick. It's in his face, and it'll be on his hands and legs. Yes, he's carrying on at undiminished speed, and there's no sign of any mechanical problem. A little bit of flame from the exhaust, but that's normal on a turbo car. I reckon that's a fire extinguisher going off, and that could be giving Derek Warrick a lot of great discomfort, because you can get a sort of chemical freezing from these powder fire extinguishers. Yes, look, he seems to be waving his hand up in the cockpit. That's well, the smoke or the foam or the powder or whatever it was seems to have stopped, but certainly that has slowed the Tolman considerably. We're now on lap 58, and Derek Warrick has slipped well back from De Cesaris. That's a great shame. Just as Warrick seemed to be closing on De Cesaris, that problem. And we're just getting word from the pits, from the Tolman pit indeed. The Tolman pit watching the race, among them incidentally the rock star Elton John, who's in the Tolman pit with Alex Hawkridge, the Tolman team manager. But we gather from Alex Hawkridge that that was indeed the fire extinguisher which went off in Derek Warrick's face. And Warrick, very, very tough, determined Hampshire driver, is clearly carrying on regardless, or as near regardless as he possibly can, because that must have been very, very uncomfortable for him indeed. There's Alain Prost. Alain Prost, in fact, coming up to lap Eddie Cheever, who is a lap down after his stop. Pique and Prost, Tombe and Mansell, De Cesaris and Warrick the order. Derek Warrick, after all that excitement, has retained his 6th place. This is lap 59, as Michele Alboretto's Tyrrell is lapped by Alain Prost, and Prost closes on his teammate Cheever. There's our leader. Nelson Pique over the brow, out of Surtees, down the hill in the fast section. There is Mansell. Nigel Mansell on lap 64 now. Round Druids and on down the hill. And Mansell, not only has he shaken off the attentions of De Cesaris, but Nigel Mansell is closing visibly on third man Patrick Tombe. There is Tombe, and there is Mansell. So, in fact, it's 1.8 seconds on the official timing. That shows what it was when they crossed the start-finish line to start their 64th lap. But in these closing stages, a wonderful late charge coming from Mansell, the British driver. Remember, his teammate De Angelis dropped out when challenging Patrese for the lead, or after challenging Patrese for the lead, because he spun but then retired with a blown engine. But it's Mansell in the sole surviving Lotus who is challenging Patrick Tombe in the Ferrari for 3rd place. And René Arnoux still out of the points. René Arnoux at this point down in 11th place after his spin. So Arnoux is not going to score points today, but Alain Prost at the moment has to face the fact that unless he can do something about Nelson Pique in front of him, unless in fact Nelson Pique fails to score points. Oh, and Mansell having a very good look at the inside there at Surtees. I was saying that unless Prost can win this race and Pique doesn't score, the championship is going to go to South Africa. Now Mansell challenging Tombe. This is the battle for 3rd. Mansell looking one side, then the other, really harrying Tombe. Tombe, a very cool, calm and collected driver, and somebody who is particularly good at coping with pressure. But there's no doubt that Mansell's car is quicker on the circuit, or Mansell anyway is lapping more quickly than Tambay at this point, because he's taken a long distance off Tambay and closed dramatically on him in the last few laps. Lap 65 now. Down into Paddock Bend, and Mansell is very close at Paddock Bend. Mansell is on the inside. Mansell is through. Mansell takes third place under braking for Paddock Bend. Now, is Tambay going to challenge back as they go up the hill into Druids? Oh, and Tambay locks up his front brakes there. Tambay locks his brakes, and that allows, oh yes, the crowd, the British crowd are delighted. Mansell pulling away in third place. And I'm just wondering whether Tambay has a braking problem, because as you saw, he locked his front brakes going into Druids that time, which could perhaps mean that he has less braking effort on the back than he would like. But that is not to detract from Nigel Mansell's performance, who has driven a fighting race. Mansell really has fought his way back from a slightly disappointing opening race. There's Alboreto smoking in the green Tyrrell. Yes, Alboreto keeping well out of the way there. As we see Mansell's attack once again, he gets on the inside, going into the treacherous, steeply falling away Paddock Bend. It's a bend that you enter without being able to see the apex, but Mansell knows it like the back of his hand and is able to take the line from Tambay. Tambay fights back up the hill into Druids and then locks his wheels. There he goes, locks his front right-hand wheel and loses further time going wide into Druids. So Mansell now third, Tambay now fourth, and into the pits indeed comes Michele Alboreto in the very low seating 012 Tyrrell. Alboreto's race run, we've already seen his teammate Danny Sullivan dramatically depart from the race. This is lap 67, Mansell third now, Tambay fourth, De Cesaris fifth, and Derek Warrick still there in sixth place. And incidentally, we've got Derek Warrick's teammate, the Italian Bruno Giacomelli, in seventh place in the other Tolman. So both the Tolmans running in sixth and seventh places, 33 seconds the gap from Pique to Mansell. So that's a long way now with less than 10 laps to go, because we're on lap 67. I don't think there's much that Mansell can do about Pique. Indeed, I don't think there's much that he can do about Prost, because Prost in second place is less than 10 seconds behind Pique. And Tambay now under pressure from De Cesaris. Tambay clearly is in braking trouble, I would think. Oh, and he locks his brakes again, and Tambay is off! Tambay is off! Tambay thumps the barrier at Druids. Under pressure from De Cesaris, Patrick Tambay clouts the barrier at Druids, just where he almost had a moment a couple of laps ago, trying to get his third place back. We're going to see it again. Tambay under pressure as they come out of paddock. De Cesaris is closing all the time, and Druids is a corner where you need your brakes. And once again, that front right-hand brake locks for Tambay. He skates onto the grass, and it's all over. Thumps the tyres, which protect the Armco barrier, clouts the front of the Ferrari comprehensively, and Patrick Tambay out of the race. What a miserable day this has been for Ferrari, because remember that René Arnoux had a spin and is still running, but out of the points. And I can't remember a race there where Ferrari haven't scored this year, apart from Detroit, I think. So, Pique on his way, lap 69 this is, and Prost is getting closer. But I reckon this late in the race that Nelson Piquet is probably doing exactly what he was able to do in the Italian Grand Prix a couple of weeks ago, which was back off the boost pressure for increased reliability and just ensure that Alain Prost doesn't get too close. The yellow car behind him is Winkelhock's ATS, which has been lapped, but the yellow car behind Winkelhock is indeed Alain Prost. so they're not that far apart. There is Nigel Mansell just sneaking by the Stefan Johansson Spirit Honda, which is still running but fairly well down. That, of course, is a car that uses the engine that the Williams team will be using next year, and indeed next Grand Prix, because they should have their Honda-powered cars ready for South Africa. There is Alain Prost, and Prost still driving as hard as he knows how to close this gap. And there's Eddie Cheever, and there is René Arnoux. And Cheever and Arnoux are running together in, by my lap chart, 10th and 11th places. Hasn't been a good day for either of them. Cheever, you'll remember, had that extra pit stop to sort out his flapping visor. And Alain Prost now closing on Manfred Winkelhock in the ATS. But I think Alain Prost must realise that barring extreme misfortune for Nelson Piquet, he's got to settle for second place. He's certainly not going to get the World Championship today. And here's this battle between Arnoux and Cheever. They may not be battling for points, but that was Arnoux darting alongside Cheever there. We're back now with Alain Prost, and Prost closing on Winkelhock all the time. This is lap 75 of the 76, and Arnoux is past. Arnoux has salvaged some of his lost dignity from that early spin, and he has passed Eddie Cheever, but what they're arguing about down there is 9th place, so no championship points in it for René Arnoux. This is lap 75 now, and this very exciting and very hard-fought Grand Prix of Europe is going into its final laps. Into clearways for the penultimate time comes the leader, Nelson Piquet. The pen nib shape of that graceful Gordon Murray designed car shows his gap as 6 seconds to Alain Prost, and 6 seconds on the last lap is more than he needs. So now Nelson Piquet is just concentrating on cruising home, making no mistakes on this final lap as he goes for the last time into Graham Hill Bend. He's in 4th gear now, takes 3rd gear for Surtees, this treacherous left-hander up the hill which has caught out Arnoux and De Angelis. Up over the brow, on down the longest straight on the circuit, Pilgrim's Drop, steeply downhill under the bridge. Up the hill, he's taken 4th gear, 150 miles an hour for Hawthorne's Bend, holding 4th down to Westfield for the last time. Through Westfield, once more steeply downhill through the quaintly named Dingle Dell. Up the other side for Dingle Dell Corner. He's in 3rd gear now. He's going to hold 3rd round the left-hander of Sterling's. This is Sterling's Bend. Now the short, sharp burst up into 4th gear, 160 miles an hour under the Longines Bridge. And now down to clearways. The man with the checkered flag is ready for Nelson Piquet. It's going to be 2 wins in 2 Grand Prix. Nelson Piquet crosses the line. The checkered flag is there for him. He's led every lap except the first 10, and a wonderful victory then for the Brazilian. And now, as Alain Prost comes home to finish 2nd by my rough hand timing, no more than 7 seconds down, we wait for Nigel Mansell, who's going to be a very, very popular 3rd. There's a glimpse of Jonathan Palmer, who comes home to finish, but the Lotus mechanics are waiting for Mansell. Mansell crosses the line to take the flag himself. A superb 3rd place for the Lotus Renault and for Nigel Mansell, and that's really pleased the crowd. The biggest cheer here from the Brands Hatch crowd reserved for 3rd man Mansell, as we look at De Cesaris 4th, and a fine finish indeed for the Tolmans, because not only is Derek Warrick 5th, there he is at the back of that trio, but Bruno Giacomelli, his teammate, is 6th. Giacomelli scoring championship points for the first time with Tolman. Derek Warrick 2 points, Giacomelli 1. Mansell, of course, gets 4 points for his 3rd. De Cesaris gets 3 points for his 4th. But Piquet with 9 and Prost with 6 means that the World Championship indeed goes all the way to Kyalami in 3 weeks' time, because I reckon that's going to mean Prost and Piquet, there are the points. Yes, Prost and Pique just 2 points apart. René Arnoux still has an outside chance. If Arnoux can win and the other two don't score in Kyalami, then Arnoux could be champion by 1 point. So Arnoux' chances are still slimly there. But Prost and Pique it is who are going to battle all the way. That's Sir John Watson's car being brought home. We didn't mention that he shunted the Armco before half distance with the McLaren tag, but all eyes on the balcony, on the winner's rostrum. There is Pique getting the spoils of victory, getting the Gold Cup, which he holds aloft, acknowledges the Brands Hatch cheers, and already we can now look ahead just 3 weeks to the South African Grand Prix, Kyalami, which will be a great climax to this wonderful season. We hope you'll join us.